So today I am going to go on a divergence and watch a French film instead. I don't think it's even a horror film. I think it's just drama, although horror usually has drama anyway. But it's still gritty, so I think. Anyway, it doesn't begin in the most splendid of circumstances. Sort of like a Birdman, actually. Begins. Uh, not exactly a great beginning, let's just say. But it has, it explains the difference, not quite clear, so one would need to research further. Ex- Explains summarily the difference between emphysema and asthma, apparently. Hmm, didn't know that asthma has more breathing irregularities, apparently. Didn't think I'd be getting a medical lesson from a French drama. It is called, by the way, yeah, it's called The Unknown Girl, right? Yeah. Uh, so let's see what's about. Oh, and apparently, wheezing is characteristic of bronchitis. Hmm. Didn't think there were such clear-cut differentiations, but apparently so. Should keep that in mind. So I'm not sure if this film's intention is to overwhelm people with a lot of medical stuff, because straight after this that diagnosis, there was a there was a epileptic fit and such, and it's I mean if it went at that rate, if it had as much as that rate, I don't know, so sort of a medical horror, I suppose, or something. There's maybe the reason why I'd never really want to be a medical professional. It's way too much, isn't it? One after another. It's quite something, though, saying that the male doctor have a fit of his own, not an epileptic fit, of course, an anger one. For some reason, I'm not quite not sure I understood what the reason was. Seemed to have taken criticism wrongly, but then what was criticized? The fact that he didn't do anything when the epileptic fit was very strange. So I don't know if Davan is a French name exclusively, if they've created the name and say it however they like, but it's seemingly spelled Davin, so it's really confusing. I mean, there's clearly an I, there's not an A or an E, and so yeah, this is almost like the Romish call of general practice. I mean, there's so much. Okay, 16 minutes in, there's already diagnosis and epileptic fit, and then someone bold, one can presume, and then someone with an infected leg. That I guess one could say is a bit gory, I guess. I don't know. It's because the adjective gory could be applied to real life situations, could it? Yeah, it's one of those films where, I mean, so far, as far as I know, there hasn't been a single piece of music, just none at all. No music, no tunes. It's one of those realistic, bare, concrete sort of ones that, just I think fictionalized films. The more fantastical they are, the more likely they are to have music. I guess. I mean, most films have music. They have at least applies to. So that the whole film doesn't have any music at all. But think the more fictional they are, the more, well, the music is strange, I suppose. Like Suspiria itself. After all, it's well, obviously it's fictional and it's quite wild, and the wilder it gets, the more strange the music gets. And yeah, in the police office, the no, police, I think the detectives. Well, anyway, it's uh, it it's implied then that because she thought that if somebody was in an emergency, that they'd ring twice, and I suppose that's reasonable, isn't it? A reasonable assumption. Somebody would try, even if it's multiple times in quick succession. But yeah, from the CCTV, it's certainly implied or even shown that that's not necessarily true. What one assumes is the most likely scenario isn't necessarily always true. Somebody, I mean, if they're literally, yeah, I mean, if some if they need to get away from a place quickly, I suppose then maybe they wouldn't have the time to press again. They don't get an immediate response, I guess. So it's not always true. I mean, I personally tried twice in quick succession, but I suppose, yeah, if you need to get away from a place, you cannot linger about even for 30 seconds. Yeah, I guess. And anyone watching this would figure out what this has instead of music is very raw society noises, from cars to some sort of pressurized water thing. It's annoying to say the least. I suppose they're trying to show that this is a very raw experience. I suppose realistic, raw. So far, it seems like every single flat or apartment or whatever they are is made of cardboard. I swear. I mean, the street outside could be heard so well. I mean, just um, buildings are normally made of concrete, but no, these really don't seem like that. They just don't. I mean, I suppose it's obviously when it comes to films, they could film it anywhere. The set could be artificial and such. But I'm assuming not this. I mean, obviously they wouldn't do the cars artificially. They could, I suppose. They could even do some sort of sound in the background, but I'm assuming it's not. And since watching something like Suspiria, which was actually mostly filmed in apparently Italy, even though it's supposed to be set in Berlin. So one gets used to a lot of this artificiality, but yeah, I think this isn't just trying to show that it's raw and realistic. I think it is. It is what it is. I mean, I'd be surprised if I read that. It's artificial constructed. I mean, it's easier to just. I mean, I'm sure there's loads of apartments that are paper thin, so might as well just film in one of them rather than artificially construct such a thing. Now, I'm not sure why I was expecting either Julian or the old doctor to know who she was. Considering the film title, then yeah, presumably, I mean, if somebody knew her, then she wouldn't be unknown, would she? So, yeah, that should have given it away, and I'm assuming then this is some sort of medical detective story, then I suppose at this point. I'm assuming this is the began from the 20th minute mark or something, and that it's going to just continue on to unravel in this aspect, I suppose, for this Um, so, well, might as well. I mean, better than medical cases one after another. I think this and that's kind of why I don't feel, I've never really I don't think I can watch a medical series in that sense. Not ones that deal with trauma or such. I don't know, yes, and physical trauma. Um, so they can be very gory, couldn't they? And I mean, they are. I mean, it's something, isn't it? I mean, I think doctors see more gore than even a regular horror viewer sees. I think depends on what the horror is like. I suppose. I personally, you know, gore is the least favorite of any horror trope. Mm, and yeah, three mothers said a lot, which is ironic considering I did continue watching it. Well, I watched those mainly for their mythology. I think I'll try reading the book or the thing they were based on originally from centuries ago. I'm not sure how it compares to the actual movies. But with regards to this case, uh, I'm I'm not even half an hour in, but yeah, they did say that they didn't see her, but I'm suspecting Julian really because he left at around the same time, maybe a bit later, but it could have been done later. They didn't really specify when it could have been done, and also suspiciously, I mean, he says he didn't see her when he confirms that he didn't know her. He seems to give sort of naturalistic response, not quick or too slow or um, too anxious. I suppose that could be another giveaway. So that wasn't what was what roused suspicion, but the fact that he was packing that could be entirely unrelated as well. But he was packing. Now, on its own, that would be, I suppose, only incidental. But the fact that he left at the same time as well rouses suspicion. And in addition to which, he left in a huff. People can be seriously childish, at least at worst, violent thugs, really, to just assume that doctors simply write out sick notes to get time off their job. I mean, what's the point? And then they react violently just because they refuse. People are childish. What's the point? Just quit the job if you don't like it. It's always a prerogative. Seriously, just getting violent with the wrong person if they don't like the job. And yeah, this is why I don't watch this sort of medical drama. I can't believe they just cut to at the very center some sort of diseased foot. I mean, what? It's just it's seriously. I mean, it's very funny, but something like Suspiria, they try to elicit disgust from when Marcos came about, and that's obviously just prosthetics. It's quite funny that Marcos was played uh, by Tilda as well, just like the old guy. Anyway, yeah, just as much as they try to elicit disgust, it's nothing compared to real stuff. I'm assuming this is real. I mean, suppose they use prosthetics here, but then who knows? I don't know how this happened, but I wish they just concentrated on the investigation rather than I don't know what they try to do. Honestly, it's presented. I mean, even the title of this film itself, it's presented as from the point of view of the investigation, not the medicine so far. I mean, so I think that's been more about medical issues and between the gore and the disgust. Yeah, this could make for a raw, realistic horror film, I guess. And it's yeah, doctors certainly have a potentially horrifying clientele. You know, I'm trying to not look at it. You know, even if a movie tries to, make the audience look at something, but placing it in the center, unless it occupies the entire screen, one could always look, at another corner. It's always people's prerogative, I suppose. It's not like, you're missing much as long as you look at it, for a millisecond or something, or a second, and but considering one needs to read subtitles, there's no way, unless I knew the language. Um, then yeah, it's quite hopeless because subtitles are also the center, so very annoying when you need to read subtitles, and it's something that elicits disgust from the very at the same place as well. Yeah. And yeah, at the same time, this is happening. This dog and the beggar, quite naturalistic. Yeah, I mean, that's quite easy to happen. I mean, happens at least once a day usually, and at any point, I think, anywhere, dogs can be noisy. That's why I prefer cats. Cats, even if they're in heat, they're not as noisy. I mean, they can be noisy, but actually, now that I think of it, unless they're big dogs don't actually have as much of a bass quality to the sound, do they? Whereas cats could. Somehow cats and heat have this basal sound for some reason. So at one point, she says that there's no temperature. Now, I know that it's a sort of shorthand for no high temperature or low, I guess, if that's the context. But this is a doctor, so I mean, do they normally say such a on the surface weird thing? I mean, if there was no temperature, then presumably there was stove or something. I mean, anything alive couldn't possibly have no temperature, now could it? So it's just a bit strange, and considering this is supposed to be about her life as a doctor, and yet um, she says that there's no temperature. um, at around the 45-minute mark, she raises her hand for some reason. Looks like she's looking at a wristwatch, but she didn't seem to have a wristwatch, so I have no idea why she did that. She has a pot of flowers in her hand, in the other hand, and it still doesn't make sense either way. Yeah, it's also kind of funny that she calls indigestion an emergency. Up to now, she's been quite honest, but of course, anyone who has seen so far would know that her emergency is her hope that he divulge some sort of information that he might know. And of course, we also have vomiting. Uh, this, yeah, it's quite. as mentioned earlier, it's like a naturalistic horror film or something. I mean, some horror films seem to think that if you include someone vomiting, then adds to the atmosphere somehow. You know, I suppose it does if you want to elicit disgust. Similar manner, I mean, in this sense, of course, it's slightly more. I mean, what most horror films, have no reason, no valid reason to include such an act. I mean, it's really useless usually. But yeah, well, in the medical profession, you'll get all sorts of conditions, of course. So, in a sense, it's perfectly natural. Of course, her reasoning that it's because he's stressed, because he's hiding something, is a bit more spurious. I mean, it's not absolutely it won't, just it's not absolute. It's not, it's not objective that happens. People can be stressed for other reasons or not be stressed. Yeah, but that specifically doesn't make much sense. But anyway, yeah, that guy in what seems like a nursing home or people's home, um, he cannot handle even a question, some questions. How exactly can he handle, heart-wise, cardiovascularly? How can he handle intercourse? I mean, he can't even handle a question. How? Yeah, it's a mystery, forever a mystery. Truly, people get violent over the most stupid of things. So, over a sick note, and then now over some garage. Like, what? What what's doctors got to do with garages? Unless, of course, he has evidence in that garage of the crime that he might have committed or might not. But uh, but becoming violent isn't quite absolving oneself of potential crime. By the way, one problem I see in trying this sort of detective work, besides the fact she's alone, without any possible defenses or offensive weapons or such, in case something happens. One thing that is glaringly obvious that, I just I wouldn't personally. I mean, not unless I had, yeah, as I say, something to defend myself with. But if we show the photo to the actual perpetrator, you know, well, they'll either say, yeah, you've never seen it. Try to act uh, as natural as possible, or they'll target the person who asked somehow, or or they could say, no, I've never seen her, and then target them in some way, even without them knowing, like just so they stop searching. Clearly, she seems to have more motivation to search than even an actual detective has. So it just it's risky. I mean, yeah, sure, she felt it, she empathized, but she thought, she contributed to the situation, but she's not exactly very uh, yeah, safe in a sense, I mean, it's a casual world, but it could be, just like that guy, got all, yeah, it just happens, and even people who haven't committed murder are able to become violent. So it is a potentially dangerous world. Really, people like this. I mean, I don't know how realistic this is. How if a doctor can just simply think that they can act as detective for a bit, But, yeah, in real life, there is, outside of film. Well, one thing she does have is dedication. I mean, from what I can understand, she just moved in bedding equipment to her medical office. I assume in case someone wants to tell her something about this case. I mean, that is some dedication. But you know what? It's quite something that it's not usual. But I guess sometimes it's possible that films and movies do not have music. But yeah, sure enough, what I thought earlier didn't turn out to be so. That this seems to have none at all. I've watched others that have some sometimes, but mostly not. Still, but this has absolutely none. I'd be surprised if even the ending credits had anything. Although I don't think I've ever seen ending credits without anything at all. We'll see. And of course, it has a chainsaw. Why wouldn't it? We need to show what kind of a hellish, noisy world everyone lives in, right? It's incredible how it has all sorts of noises. I mean, cars is one thing, but I don't know. This Julian seems to have not wanted a doctor's career as a to have a career as a chainsaw user or something. It seems like that would be the very last thing I'd ever choose. And of course, we're having a conversation of a chainsaw. This I really don't know. Like I don't even know why journalists do their reports while the background is seriously noisy. I mean, when it comes to films, like I mean, what kind of? Because obviously, films, they have control over everything. I'm sure with this one, they did. Uh, well, yeah, they must have just wanted it to be naturalistic, just reality. But come on, who in real life talks over chains? Who can even do that? Like it's impossible, right? I mean, even if one wasn't distracted, it's not possible to talk over it. I mean, it's one of the most noisy things ever, right? And unless you're shouting or something, it just makes no sense. And why would throw? I mean, even if you're trying to be as natural as possible, what's natural about this chainsaw anyway? Unless you're doing a film about woodworking in general or whatever, you know, uh, felling trees. I mean, even um, I just this is honestly one of the elements that makes me think um, less of a film. Right, like, up to now, I thought it was interesting, but I mean, how on earth am I supposed to be interested now? Just randomly starts and stops. I mean, yeah, I'll just stop ranting for now. Just stop ranting. I wonder we're having coffee as well outside. Would you like some wood cuttings in your coffee, miss? Ah, but what do you know? He shut them up using coffee. Of course, unless of course they're trying to like I don't know. I'm assuming you need two hands for to tackle a chainsaw, but I mean I don't know. They could try something. I suppose you like balance it off balance the cup of a chainsaw. Like, ooh yeah, just like it's another absurd juggling act. Honestly, thought even the 2 minutes that this took is just annoying. And let's hope it doesn't happen again. It's just annoying. I mean, I don't know. And yeah, you know what? I did think there was something that could be. I mean, I'm at the point where the car stopped by and is indicating for the car to stop. Um, I did think that he knew something because he looked down, but she didn't notice since she was looking at the other person. Yeah, to him. Yeah, there's always something, isn't it, when people look down and avert their eyes. So hmm, let's see what he knows then. And yeah, they're like, it has nothing to do with us. Ooh, well, yeah, so it's everything to do with you then. But yeah, what do you know? I mean, exactly what I thought could happen happens. Of course, it's quite possible for it to happen. I don't get why she continues searching and asking people about her if she has a great big hint as to who might have done it, or at least who the accomplices are, or witnesses or something. So, in my opinion, she should have either went to the detective, or if she gave in to her fear, then she would have stopped. Not sure why she should continue looking if you know was what could this result in. I mean, clearly Brian is acting suspicious as well now, so seems like he might have been a witness. Mm, but seriously, in this film, I don't know if it's generally like that in France, but not absolutely everywhere, I assume. But I suppose it could be in busy towns in Paris or something. But seriously, in every single house, it's like they're living outside. I mean, the walls are incredibly inconspicuous. By the way, Brian's family is quite something. Uh, yeah, quite strange. The first day they didn't want to see her anymore, uh, and all of them have problems as well. Like, how is that possible? I mean, sure, it's possible for every single person to have problems, but all of them all at once as well, and it's quite something. Yeah. By the way, when there was the pause after he asked her how much he owes her, there was a pause, and I knew she was going to think of getting information instead of money. Yeah, the pauses can really say a lot, can they? And I think one of the most interesting phrases that was uttered in this film is, if she was dead, she wouldn't be in our heads. So I guess, it's a sort of a commentary on uh, how someone can keep living through memory in a way, but in reality, I mean, it's just, anxiety that arises subjectively and such. By the way, I like the picture she has on the wall behind her desk. It's quite simple. It's all blue, and yeah, somehow it seems almost 3D. Yes, that makes it quite interesting. And later on, she, I guessed right that she was a sister as opposed to a mother or someone else. Yeah. With regards to names, they went from serenity to happiness. And what do you know? At the end, indeed, there is no music. There is only traffic. So yeah, it's quite something. It's the first time that I mean, the first time I ever had traffic in credits. But I think also the first time I haven't heard any music in credits generally. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's quite something. It clearly indicates that films, I guess, could be possibly done without music. I mean, it happened, and it didn't work out too badly. And as much as I did sometimes dislike the fact that they relied on noise a lot. I mean, effectively, there's noise, and it's just annoying. But I suppose one could see why they they did this. So, well, I mean, it could be said, I suppose, in a rural area where there isn't so much hubbub, but it isn't, I suppose. And I, I think though there's a lot of towns in France. There are rural, so I suppose so it's not like all of France is so urban. But anyway, this wasn't, and yeah, one could see this was a humanistic tale, uh, very much so. That was truly um, told in a very minimalistic way. I think we could say it was minimalistic, and it does convey something. That literally the only music that was listed in the credits was the guitar song that one of her patients um, just came out with at one point, and it worked somehow. Still worked, right? Somehow. Like, there was no radio. There was nothing. It's quite like, as opposed to Birdman, for example, which I mean that was not. I can't really compare to that. That did try to be fantastic. Not through, through, not through, not wholly fantastic. It combined realism with fantasy, but the music, came out of nowhere, and just and suddenly we see the drummer relocated. Now this realism throughout, and what one also finds, after watching the entire thing, is that ultimately, I do admit that there is this one plot hole. I think it's a hole, at least. Yeah, the fact that those two who uh, threatened her. Um, I suppose I can understand it in a way, but yeah, threatening her might have been over the top considering what they were worried about. As usual with everything. I mean, someone was worried about garage, another person was just wanted some time off work, and they get violent over this nonsense. So in a way, I suppose so. I mean, they though those two don't really, well, they're not really expanded upon much. So in a way, they're just the little time they had, they didn't really say much except to indicate that they're threatening. So I suppose one couldn't really base the entire film on those two. Uh, and if one concentrates on even her, even the doctor herself, the what's common among between her and several other people is guilt. I think not so much Julian. He had some other problem. He had a more a personal problem that related to his childhood, but I don't think it was guilt as much. Or maybe it was, but it was more of if feeling like he needed to do something to rectify some things. Other than that, though, other than him, she seemed to feel simply guilty for the little that she did or didn't do, and you know, she did a lot more, to try to rectify that as well. So in a way, there is still some commonality between her and Julian as well. But yeah, a couple of other people also shared her guilt in a way, in a similar sort of fashion, but it's slightly different. So they're looking at it from different points of views, from different angles, and at least three of them, at the very least, had clearly felt guilty, including the doctor, even though she didn't really do that much. But I mean, then again, they were all clearly fallible. I think that's another thing that this clearly indicates. I mean, everyone is fallible here, like in real life, just fallible. But um, this wasn't a stereotypical comic book villain story, where there's a clear distinction between one and the other. No, well, besides those two who threatened her, but they just weren't given enough screen time. I suppose if they were, they could have also broken down their own miseries or something. But um, it was interesting. I felt it was a tale about mistakes and regrets, and it it made me realize that films can have no music at all. Still be films. I mean, of all the bombast that uh, franchises like One Miss Call have, you know, they had music, but I mean, it's not like I cannot even visualize it right now or hear it in my mind. So I suppose it still didn't make much of an impact, even though other than that, they had a lot of bombast and a lot of repetition. So in a way, this is much more real, and it does seem real. As I said, I'd be very surprised if any of this set was artificial. I suppose it wasn't, but you know. So whereas others like Dying Guy have a bit of that elements of this, it was also a sort of detective story, except it was way more stylish and it had some seemingly supernatural elements, but then but it was more fantastic than this. Certainly, this was very grounded, as grounded as can be, really, and it wasn't very very depressing. I mean, there was a central aspect of it. Other than that, it was about uncovering the entire thing. It was still interesting, though. At least it stopped. Just she still saw some patients, but they were more relevant to her case that she was pursuing. So yeah, they still. It is also sort of similar to Our Little Sister, Japanese film. It was also grounded and such, but I think that had music though, if I'm not misremembering. But it was similarly realistic and meditative, and as this one was. So yeah, interesting. These sort of films can be interesting, or they could fail, but in this case, I think it succeeded a bit. I mean, it's not spectacular. It's not. It's it's still sort of it shows a picture of some fallible humans, I guess, at a very basic level. It's, 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 it's what it can be.